like you were kind of feeding into it, and then I feel like you got caught, and then you were like, aha, fuck you, I'm not going down for this. Like, anyways, it's your boy J5. If you guys are new here, you already know what to do. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, hit the bell, all that good stuff. Let's get into this one.
Following a big update in a shocking case of child sex abuse. This former nurse was caught by her husband having sex with her stepson. Alexis Von Yates made a shocking excuse when trying to explain herself when her husband walked in on the incident last summer. She has now taken a plea deal. What that means for how long she'll be in prison. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. The police report that we have in this case, I will be honest with you.
I'm going to tell you the truth. One thing that I've learned since doing this channel is that there's no particular type of female that will do stuff like this. There's no common thread necessarily other than them being in positions of power. Typically the females that I've seen so far are either caregivers or teachers, which both are kind of positions of power for women, and they've taken advantage of a young man underneath them. That's the typical theme that I've seen. But as far as like visuals go and looks go, you can't really pick it out. Like I will say, I've made jokes about this woman before because I said, don't ever date a girl with a butterfly tattoo on her stomach. I still kind of stand by that, but it's one of those things where they can look so sweet and innocent, and you will be absolutely wrong. You will be completely wrong about the type of person that they are. You think you have a good idea based on their facial features or whatever, man. It's not even close. You would think you can kind of judge a person and be like, oh, they seem like nice and well put together. No, like don't ever think that just because a person presents themselves in a certain way that somehow you're secure in that relationship or they're a decent person. That's not how it works. I used to think that, like they have like a let me meet my mom face or let me take her home to meet my mother kind of face. And it's like, nope, they ain't got nothing to do with it. I'm telling you, that don't got nothing to do with it.
Is not an easy read. It details a stepmom having sex with her 15-year-old stepson, then trying to make excuses when she's caught. And let me tell you, there is a lot that was included in this police report that I cannot say, and frankly, I don't want to say. But it is important that we rehash what police say happened the night this then registered nurse seduced a minor inside her home, her own stepson, before we get to the plea deal that she just took. Here's a picture of Alexis Von Yates. She was 34 years old when all of this went down last year inside her home in Ocala, Florida. She lived with her husband, who had a 15-year-old stepson who was staying at their house for the summer on vacation. He had stayed with them for roughly a month. Police say on one of the final nights that the boy was staying at the house, he was hanging out with his stepmom. They were watching a horror movie on the couch. Now, the two had just put the younger children in the home to bed. It was around 11 o'clock at night. Police say Von Yates and her stepson were also hitting a THC pen. The two apparently found the movie Terrifier 2 boring, according to the interview that the victim in this case gave police. And that's when this police report states that Alexis Von Yates...
This movie's kind of boring. You want to that's a classic, bro. That's such a classic move that you do to I don't know, bro. That's like a classic move that you do to your girl that you're just like going to see, bro pulled it out on his stepmom. That's crazy. I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about this one sometimes. I feel like my boy had more to do with this than he was really willing to put on. Like, I feel like dad called him and he was like, oh, sorry, blaming her. But bro was low key plotting this. I feel like I can't even lie. Just based on some of the details, like when they start to get into it a little bit further, I think bro was he was thinking a little bit further ahead than maybe some might be willing to admit just because he's a kid. So I don't know.
Yates started talking about how aroused she was because she hadn't had sex in a couple of weeks. Again, this is a conversation with her 15-year-old stepson. In the interview that the stepson then gave to police, he said he was sitting close on the couch with his stepmom and he was playing with her hair. Now, apparently, Von Yates making these kind of statements didn't come out of the blue. The teen told investigators that his stepmom had been making sexual comments for roughly a week. He said he went to the gym with Von Yates, and when they got into the car after, she said, quote, "I bet everyone thought you were my little boy toy." In another instance, he said Von Yates was eating whipped cream and she stuck out her tongue in a way that the victim found sexual, and he likened it to what you see in a pornography film. And Von Yates then reportedly said, quote, "Oh, you like that?" Then there was
I don't know, bro.
reportedly an instance where he was on a golf cart with Von Yates and two of her friends, and he also said that this 15-year-old, he was given a shot and also another hit of a THC pen. The teen said that he did make some sort of sexual joke, and then Von Yates said to her friends, quote, "He probably watches those stepmom pornos." Now, on the night where Von Yates had sex with this teenager, the police report states that after Von Yates had talked about how aroused she was, the teen asked if they wanted to cuddle. The police report states that the teen told them that Von Yates at first said that would be, quote, "weird." But then, when the teen laid on top of Von Yates, she said something to the effect of, quote, "Oh, you're just going right for it, huh?" Now, police then say, as the teen kissed Von Yates on her neck, she escalated the situation by saying, "Ah, man, I wish you were 18 because you're not old enough." Police say the child victim then gave Von Yates oral sex. The police report goes on to say that Von Yates told the teen to stop, but then would pull him back in to continue. Von Yates then gave the 15-year-old oral sex and said something to the effect of it was the least she could do. Now, as this was going on, the door opened to the home and in walks that 15-year-old's dad, who was Alexis Von Yates' husband. He was a lineman. He worked late nights and he had come home. And at that point, the police...
I ain't gonna lie. I feel bad for the dad for real. Like, that's so fucked up to come home to that. But like, bro, I'm not gonna lie. Like, more and more I listen to this story now. Like, at first I was like, she's weird, and she is definitely weird still for doing this. But like, when I listen to it more, it's like no one can force you to perform oral on a female. Like, it's just not possible. Like, you could be forced to perform oral on a man somewhat. I mean, to a certain degree, you could force it in, but even then, you really can't. But definitely not a female. And obviously, she shouldn't have let him. Blah blah blah. But I don't know. Like, there's a lot more. There's a lot of ability and a lot of chances for him to have like prevented this or to like walk away from the situation, and like he clearly was like definitely into this. Like, this is like, he's not like foreign. He's not like a forced actor in this situation. Like, I don't know. I just feel like there are situations where someone forces themselves on someone, or they have a lot of power over them, and they're like forced to be in a situation. And she has some power, but like I don't know. Like, there's a lot of situations. There's a lot of things he could have done differently. He could have went to bed. You could have told your dad like she's being weird. There's like so many things leading up to this. Like, if this was like all like, oh my god, the stepmom's being, it's like you were kind of feeding into it, and then I feel like you got caught, and then you were like, aha, fuck you, I'm not going down for this. Like, I don't know. When I listen to it more and more, I'm like, this is not as, I'm not as angry at her as I thought I was when I first heard this, to be honest. Let's keep playing. We'll keep going.
Police report says that Von Yates and the boy were in the middle of having sex on the couch, which was directly near the front door. Now, when the boy's dad walked in, he says he saw the 15-year-old run to the bathroom and Von Yates was shirtless on the couch. The teen then said in this interview, the dad said something to the effect of, "What the expletive is going on?" He then pulled the blanket off Von Yates and saw his wife naked. Now, the boy's dad then ordered the teen to pack his things and leave the house. The teen says that he also heard his dad calling Von Yates, his wife, quote, "a child predator." And this is where Von Yates makes an excuse that you will not believe. Von Yates says to the dad reportedly, quote, "The child victim looks like his father when he was younger. That's according to this police report. Von Yates also claimed that she told the teen to stop, which based on the police report and all those details, she may have said that, but much of that statement is a lie. The next part of this story and what the teen said in his interview lays out how his family handled this situation, and they handled it in a way a lot of people would say would be the wrong way. But then things come around later. I'll get into that. The boy and his dad left the house to drive to the boy's grandfather's house, the teen said. And on the way, the boy's dad actually stopped at a gas station. He picked up a 6-pack of beer, and the teen said his dad chugged it as they drove. The boy's dad then told him to never talk to him.
He polished off a 6-pack, bro. I feel that though. Respect to my man. Like he was not ready to deal with that. I'm gonna be real. He was not ready for that one. My boy was not really ready to walk in on his fucking fiance. Sorry, his wife sleeping with his son from his last marriage is rough. So that means now you're on marriage number 3 at the very least. I'm assuming he was married to her, to the boy's mom. I don't know for sure, but safe to assume so. So now you're divorced again. That's rough. That's rough. And your second wife is sleeping with your son. That's terrible. That's terrible. I can understand that. I can understand the 6-pack.
He also called the boy a, quote, failure. The boy's grandfather said, quote, you better not be telling them what happened when the boy said he was going to talk to his cousin about this. He also told the boy not to contact his mom about what happened with Alexis Von Yates. The boy told the interviewer that he was infatuated with Von Yates and he had never actually engaged in sexual or emotional activity before, but he also felt upset that his family, in his opinion, was trying to cover up what happened. But Von Yates wasn't done. The teen said the next morning, the boy called her after everything that had happened, even her husband walking in on this situation, according to the police report. And on the phone, Von Yates said how she wished that her husband hadn't walked in on them. And she also made more sexual comments. She even rated the experience, the teen said, a 7 out of 10. I put Alexis Von...
No way! Man, I don't remember this from the first one. No fucking way she said that. The next day? Yikes.
Now, police say an anonymous tip was put in about this case that then brought it even more to light. And that tip, according to a witness known as Kaylee in this police report, was reportedly put in by the boy's dad. So it appears that there's a bit of a change of heart, maybe a cooling off period after the teen said his dad allegedly tried to cover it all up and have it go away the night that he walked in on all of this happening. According to that witness, the boy's dad did have that change of attitude from the narrative that police had put out the night in question. The dad said he was on the stepson's side as long as the stepson was willing to testify. Now, police say when Von Yates was contacted, she said she did not want to speak about it unless a lawyer was present. And also, according to this police report, she thought a DCF case against her had been closed and that she was in the clear. Police say she even continued to blame the victim in this case, that 15-year-old boy. In April of this year, the state of Florida suspended Von Yates' license to practice nursing. She had been a nurse since 2016. And with how detailed this police report was, you can see the case that prosecutors would have had against her in a trial. In May of this year, a court ruled that all those details I gave you, there is more in that police report that I just couldn't go into detail about because it's so graphic, but all of it was going to be admissible if this case had gone to trial. And that was a major blow to Alexis Von Yates' defense. Court records show on August 21st, so last week, Von Yates pleaded no contest to a charge of lewd and lascivious battery, and that was part of a plea deal. She originally was facing a charge of sexual battery on a minor. The Daily Mail reports that Von Yates will spend 2 years in prison, then have 2 years of community control, and then will have 10 years of sex offender probation. She will also have to complete 200 hours of community service. She will be sentenced on September 16th. Joining us now, criminal defense attorney.
You really f***ed up your life so bad to hook up with a 15-year-old, though. I'm gonna be honest, like, these cases never make sense to me. I guess you don't think you're going to get caught. And for a while there, it seemed like if she really wasn't going to get caught, it wasn't going to be, and even once she got caught by an adult, it wasn't going to get taken to court or taken to the authorities at the very least. And now you've lost your nursing license. And to be honest, 2 years is a slap on the wrist.
Joe Tamburino, thank you for being with us on Law and Crime. Tough story here. I mean, just the details of the affidavit when she was arrested, the interview that the victim gave in this case, very detailed to say the least. When you look at, now that she's taken this plea deal, if she were to go to trial, how defensible of a case was this for her?
Well, thanks for having me on, Chris. Not defensible at all. I mean, she got a very good deal in this case, and here's why. In Florida, the age of consent is 18. There are exceptions if the person is 16 or 17 and the person they have sexual relations is no more than 23 years of age. However, she was originally charged with basically what's called a first-degree sex crime, which goes up to life in prison in Florida. And what that means is that if you have sex with a family member, specifically who's underage, you can get up to life in prison. However, she was able.
If you have sex with a family member that's underage, you can get life in prison. That is crazy. I did not know that about the state of Florida. That is crazy. But I also can understand why stuff like that needs to be in place, because you can't be having, when you have like dads, graping their daughters and stuff like that. That's really really awful. And I understand. I actually can appreciate that.
Through her attorneys to work out a very good deal, which means instead of facing all of that, lifetime registration, everything along those lines, she's going to get 2 years and then no more than 10 years as a sex offender registrant. So it's not a bad deal for her.
Yeah, are you surprised by how good a deal that is? Because on one hand, I could see if you're prosecutors, if you have a victim who really does not want to testify in court, wants this to go over, but then at the same time, you go through the details, and that interview that the victim gave, like all those details were going to be included in this trial. It seemed like they had her in a lot of ways, and that it'd be a tough case, like to your point, I mean, it'd be a tough case to win for a defense attorney. Why would prosecutors give such a favorable deal?
Because the victim and the victim's family wants it. Just because you have an excellent case as a prosecutor, and just because you think there is a 99.9% chance that you're going to get a conviction, doesn't necessarily mean that you will go to trial, because a lot depends upon the victim and the victim's family. If you have a victim that says, look, I understand you got a great case, I understand you could convict this defendant, but I don't want to go to trial. I don't want to get up on that stand. I don't want to talk about what happened to me personally. So please give the defendant a deal that they can all live with. So even though as a prosecutor you have a very strong case, you still have to factor in the victim. All states, including Florida, have victim rights statutes, meaning victim right laws. And part of that is, though the victim can't dictate what a plea bargain is or dictate whether to go to trial or not, you still must take consideration of their requests, their beliefs, their opinions.
She ends up pleading to lewd and lascivious.
That's all valid, and I think that's all probably true. But I also think the prosecution realized, like, hey, we get a guaranteed closed deal. Fine, let's give her something she can take. We know we have a good feeling she'll take. I'll get the conviction. She'll get 2 years. She'll probably take that, because if not, she has a potential of literally serving the rest of her life in prison. And she got 10 years as a sex offender, which I'll be honest, that's really, really rough. You lost your nursing license, and for the next 10 years, this is going to follow you around everywhere you go. So you can't work in a lot of different places. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough. She definitely screwed up her life pretty bad on this one. But that's all I got for this one. I don't think there's going to be much more. It kind of wraps up that case.